Hi everyone. Do you think a beautiful website makes for a good UX? Think again. Research suggests that 70% of the users drop out of your website if they feel it is very confusing, not because it is ugly. A stunning interface or a minimal interface does not make it the best website. Hi, Namaste. I'm Ashish, and today we will bust some UX myths so that you in your UX journey do not make the same mistakes that I did. So, the first myth that we are going to bust today is that we think users will figure out everything eventually. No, users will not figure it out eventually. Yes, they are smart, but they are also busy, impatient, and very distracted. Expecting them to figure out a confusing website is a recipe for disaster. A statistic to support this is that Forrester research published that 88% of the users will drop out of your website if they do have a bad user experience. That means 9 out of 10 people say no thanks to your product and service just because it's not intuitive enough for them. So, what do we do in that case? You have to make it simple and very clear. The way to go is to have familiar design patterns, clear navigation, and simple words so that the users are not left guessing what to look for in an interface. That's how you make users figure everything eventually. The second myth that we are going to bust today is we think we are the users. No, we are not. We are nowhere near our users. The thing is, the problem is with designers and developers is that we are too close to the product. We know every workaround, every navigation, every shortcut. But your users, they look at it from a fresh perspective. They have fresh eyes. They need to understand it before they start to use it. A very common example of this mistake was way back earlier when Microsoft introduced a visual assistant called Microsoft Clippy. They thought it would help people a lot, but it failed miserably. So, what's the way to go forward? You have to go to your users and talk to them. Ask them what they want, where they want, and how they want it, and then incorporate the same in your design. So, the third one is a big one. People think that putting more and more features into their application is good design, but no, it's not. It confuses people a lot. Just to give an example that I personally feel is Instagram. So you keep seeing Instagram putting things here and there, saying that we are moving things around, please bear with us. And there are features that I don't even use. There's notes, there's themes for chats, there's emoji games, there's nicknames nowadays. And now there are these emoticons that come up, burst into reactions. I mean, there's so much, but I don't want to use all that, right? So keep your interface, less features. The fourth myth is a classic one that we addressed at the start of this video. People still think that UX is all about making things look pretty. Do you still think that? Let me stop you right there. Research suggests that users prefer ease of use over visual appeal. Sometimes designers, in order to get a good visual appeal, end up cluttering the user interface or not putting anything at all in the user interface, making too much of white space. A classic example of how to use a good white space is that of Google. Now, Google has a good visual hierarchy and uses white space effectively and efficiently. That's how the way it has to be. Another myth that we are going to bust today is that we think users read everything on a web page. Do you think you read everything on a web page? I know I don't. So, eye tracking studies, they suggest that users, when they are reading a web page, it comes out as two kind of patterns. One is F pattern and a Z pattern. I know it all sounds very technical, but the only thing that you need to keep in mind to help users scan web pages is to have bulleted points, less content, and guide the users through visual hierarchy. The next myth that we are going to bust now is something which is trending nowadays, which is the dark mode. People love designing in the dark mode and think that everyone wants to be in the dark mode always. No, we don't want that. Research has suggested that sometimes using dark mode hinders readability for the users. And there are different cases for using light mode versus dark mode. For example, Zomato is an application where you want the users to be active on the interface. You want them to spend more time on the interface. Therefore, you have to use a light mode. Whereas if you compare it with Spotify, now Spotify is an interface where people don't look at the interface at all. They just switch music and leave their phone away. So it's better to use Spotify in dark mode. Another myth that we are going to bust today is something to do with icons. Now, there is this myth that is going on that common icons are understood by everyone. So let's leave them without caption and leave people to understand everything on their own. But no, there are many cases where same things can have different icons. Like when you like something on Facebook, there is a thumbs up. When you like something on Instagram, there is a heart. When you save something on Instagram, there is a bookmark icon. And when you save something on Word, there's a floppy disk icon. It can get very confusing if these icons are left without any labels or captions. So whenever you're designing your next interface and if you have icons to put there, please put a small caption or a label along with it to make it obvious for the users and clear to the users. The next myth that we are going to bust today is about minimalism. People confuse minimalism and often mistake minimalism with white space, using white space and white space everywhere. But let me tell you, it's not just about putting visual white space on your interface. It's also about minimalism of information and minimalism of functionality. What it means is you only have to put the information and features that are required for the users to do their tasks, nothing more. That's it. The next myth that we are going to bust today has something to do with people not doing their work. It has to do with UX design being done after launch. No, that's not the case. UX design is not done after the launch. It keeps on going. If UX design was done after the launch, we would not have had for the first iOS to the final iOS 18 right now. We would not have had from Windows XP to Windows 11 right now. It just so happens that users keep evolving over years, sometimes over decades. That's why companies have to evolve under the expectations that users have from their interface. In order to stay competitive, in order to stay relevant, and most of all, in order to stay in business, they have to get feedback from the users and evolve their products over time, every year to stay competitive and in business. So now we are at the final myth. The final myth has to do something about tech savviness of people. UX designers often make the mistake that all users are tech savvy. Well, my mom isn't so tech savvy at all. And that comes into picture when I have to teach her how to use a smart TV again and again. The same thing, it frustrates me. But for her, it's not her mistake. It's the designer's mistake. They did not design it according to her expectations and her capability. So next time, when you're designing your interface for all the tech-savvy users, keep in mind that not all users are tech-savvy, and you have to design keeping in mind the capabilities of the least tech-literate target user in your group. So we busted so many myths about making a user experience great. But great user experience isn't about making users work harder. It's about making their journey effortless. The best UX is something that they won't even notice.